Hey y'all, this is Software Focus, and today we're going back to basics with Camtasia. You don't want to miss this. Today's episode will be focused on the blur and highlight annotations used during editing. To start, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put an example clip on the timeline for us to work with. And then to get to the blur and highlight section for annotations, we go to annotations on the left side. We then go to the teardrop icon, which is the fourth one in from the left. And we see blur and highlight, and we see the available options. For blur and highlight, we have blur, we have spotlight, highlight, interactive hotspot, and pixelate. We will be covering in this video blur, spotlight, highlight, and pixelate. We'll touch briefly on interactive hotspot, but that really needs a dedicated video. So with many of the other annotations, you simply grab the option you want. We'll start with blur, and you can drag it onto the canvas, drag it down onto the timeline, or right click and add it to the timeline where the playhead is. You saw when I drug it over, it started immediately blurring wherever this square is located. Unfortunately, it is limited to a rectangular area, but this can be resized, rotated, very similar to the other annotation options. In the properties pane on the right, under annotation properties, for blur, you have the intensity of the blur, so by default it's at 100%, but we can scale that down and it becomes more clear. You also have the ability to invert it, so rather than the square being blurred, it will blur everything else but the square. And under visual properties are the same. You can scale it, increase or decrease its opacity, which in this case is kind of like the intensity of the blur. Do your rotation and your position changes. Spotlight, you again drag it over, and what it will do is it will darken everything but the selected area on the canvas. And again, this can be resized, rotated, etc. Under annotations, you have the intensity, so how dark or light the spotlight effect is. Again, these are only rectangular sections. There's no built-in way within Camtasia to make a circle. Other people have put out processes to make it appear like a circle highlight. And again, you have the visual properties for the spotlight, size, opacity, etc. For highlight, same behavior. It just provides like a yellow, by default, a yellow translucent square. And this can be, of course, modified in a very similar way. If we go under annotation properties, you can change the color. So right now it's this yellow, but I can easily change it to a green or a red. You can adjust the opacity. And you can also invert it, so everything but that section is that color. There appears to be a slight bug with my version of Camtasia. I'm currently running the most up-to-date version at this point, which is 2019.0.10. It appears to allow you to add text to the highlight, so if I double-click, but when I click off it disappears. There is a section for text. I feel as if this is a bug because there would be no reason to add text to a highlight. Highlights are designed to highlight text that's already there. So if any TextMyth developers take a look at this, maybe you can look into it. Maybe I'm completely off. Who knows? The final blur highlight that we'll be looking at deeply here is pixelate, where you can drag it over and it starts pixelating. Again, like the others, you can adjust the intensity of the pixelation, and you have your same visual properties of scaling and moving around. Now, I said I'll touch briefly on interactive hotspot. When you drag it onto the screen, it's not going to actually change anything on the screen. All it creates is a clickable area on your video that can be active within the TextSmith Smart Player. So when your video is put up on Screencast, or if you upload it to your own website using the TextSmith Smart Player, the options for the interactive hotspot will appear under Visual Properties, and these are some of the options you can do. Like I said, we'll cover this more in depth in a future video, but the general behavior for the interactive hotspot is a highlighted space for an action to allow a end user to click on the video. Interactive hotspots do allow you to add text to them. With it selected, you can double click and start typing. And you have options under the text properties on the right to change the text options. And that about covers it for the blur and highlight section for annotations. This has been Software Focus. If you like this video, hit that like button or click subscribe to join the channel for future videos. If you have any feedback or ideas for future videos, please leave a comment down below. Keep focusing.